بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. جزاكم الله خير for your patience and السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, we're trying to improve the technology, inshallah. But I can see myself. Can you turn the screen? You can turn it. Oh, no. طيب خير إن شاء الله. طيب. We continue بإذن الله تعالى in our class شرح زاد المستقنع, and we started the chapter of صلاة الجمعة, صلاة الجمعة, or باب صلاة الجمعة, باب صلاة الجمعة. We just gave a brief introduction last time and reminding you the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the bounty and how important is Salat al-Jumu'ah and the blessing of Salat of al-Jumu'ah as a day. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال فيه خلق آدم وفيه أدخل الجنة وفيه تاب الله عليه وفيه تقوم الساعة. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said the day of the Jumu'ah, in day of the Jumu'ah, Adam was created and was entered to paradise, and the same day also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted the repentance of Adam, and the day of Friday also is the day when the hour will come. And قال وقد شرع الله صلاة الجمعة وفرضها وقد دل على ذلك الكتاب والسنة, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the Salat al-Jumu'ah to be an obligation on the Ummah as been mentioned in the book, in the Quran and the Sunnah, in the Quran and the Sunnah. And all the fada'il that we mentioned last time and the importance of the day, and it is the best day of the week, as in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said, the best day in which the sun rises is Al-Jumu'ah. And also we have the day of Arafah, and Arafah is for the whole year and the Jumu'ah is for the every week. And the Jumu'ah is the Eid of the believers, the Eid of the believer. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted this ummah the great gift of the Iman and the path of the guidance. Therefore, all their celebration is also related to their faith. I mean, subhanallah, that's the best thing that someone will celebrate. قَالَ قُلْ بِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَبِرَحْمَتِهِ فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. Say with the bounty of Allah and His mercy, that with which they should be rejoicing. فضل الله سبحانه وتعالى هو القرآن ورحمته is the guidance or al-Iman. And there's many saying of the scholars about al-Fadl wal-Rahmatu, but all of them, they come to one explanation. It is the guidance and the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the path of the guidance and the Iman. To celebrate it, we celebrated in Al-Hajj and mainly in Arafah. We celebrated in Ramadan, we celebrated in Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, and we celebrated every week in Al-Jumu'ah. Therefore, the greatest of the celebration is when someone will do it with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لذلك قال سبحانه وتعالى قال إذا نودي من صلاة الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله. Or you believe when you hear the call of Salat al-Jumu'ah, hasten to the remembrance of Allah. And that is the joy and the rejoice of the believer when they come all together to celebrate the gift of the Iman and the gift of the guidance. Salatul Jumu'ah has ahkam. So this is the main, the meaning of that. But what are the ahkam, the ruling relating to Salatul Jumu'ah? يقول المصنف في باب صلاة الجمعة. المصنف in our book قال تلزم كل ذكر حر. تلزم كل ذكر حر. تلزم كل ذكر حر. Oh, Salatul Jumu'ah is an obligation on every male that he is حر, free. And of course, as you see, the author, writing this book in a society where they have, they have servants which are at the time slaves, and they have the non-slaves. Therefore, saying here, that's why we say ذكر حر. قال تلزم كل ذكر حر مكلف مسلم مستوطن. So those are the condition for the one who's on obligation for him the Jumu'ah. The first is qala dhakar. Dhakar, when we say a male, a man, so it's like here the woman is not an obligation on her Salatul Jumu'ah to attend the Jumu'ah prayer. فالجمعة لا تلزم الأنثى is not an obligation for the women. But it doesn't mean an obligation that she should not get to the Jumu'ah. لو حضرت المرأة الجمعة فإنها تصح منها. If she attends the Jumu'ah, it's been accepted and she will be rewarded for it. But it's not an obligation. We might, inshaAllah, explain and give some of the wisdom why it's not an obligation for the women. So the scholars say قال إن النساء لا تلزمهن الجمعة ولا الجماعات فلا تلزمهن الصلوات الخمسة جماعة وكذلك لا تلزمهن الجمعة. So it's not an obligation for them to attend the congregation prayer, and it's not an obligation for them to attend al-Jumu'ah. When we say an obligation, there's a difference between an obligation and the permission. I mean, it's lawful for them and accepted for them, and in certain circumstances is recommended for them to learn and to be around their sister, etc., etc., if it increases their iman, and depends on the places and the society that they live in. But here is not an obligation, which is mean if it's an obligation on the man, is an obligation. The obligation means that one who will not do it, he's going to be punished. He's going to be blamed. So because the non-action or the non-fulfillment of the obligation implies punishment. So if the man, he will not do it, he's sinful, right? But if the woman, she will not go, she's not blamed for it. But if she goes, she will be rewarded. If she goes, she will be rewarded. But if she doesn't go, she's not blamed. Doesn't mean like لا تلزمهن. قال حر خرج به العبد. When we say free, so here we exclude the servant. So the servant is not an obligation, and we'll see. قال فالعبد لا تلزمه الجمعة. العبد, servant. So according to the author, he will be, under the command of his master or the one who have him. So the one who commanded him, so under those commands, is like being given this excuse to not attend the Jumu'ah. And maybe when we say a non-obligation here, we always look in the way of the Sharia from a certain perspective. The perspective in the Sharia always look from the side of the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Because some of the people, and especially, nowadays, they always look at, the ahkam when it comes to a deen, is that look like from a preference, from given an advantage or like superiority, to the man or the woman. Look, the man, he goes to the Jumu'ah, the woman not. Look, the hur, the master, the one who goes to the Jumu'ah, the slave not. That's not how we regard it, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's Arhamur Rahimin, and this Sharia is the Sharia of mercy and the Sharia of justice. So, subhanallah, as one of the scholars, he was explaining to see the wisdom. For the servant, there's difference of opinion, which, the majority of the scholars, they say, no, it's an obligation for him to attend it, because he's obligated as a mukallaf, to attend it. And we'll see, inshallah, the difference of some of the saying of the scholar around that. For the woman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted this favor to not burden her with the Jumu'ah to be an obligation. Because of the task she has in the society, the task she has to take care of the next generation, and then those tasks, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her in a way the option, so will be ready to face those tasks without being obligated and burdened to attend the Jumu'ah. So in fact, for have the Jumu'ah non-obligatory on the woman is rahmah for them. Because imagine, for example, and this is not for, because in the Islam, take the hukm ala al-ghalib, take the hukm ala al-ghalib. So the laws are legislated based on the most common cases. Because someone say, oh, there's a woman, for example, they still not have children, or for example, there's women, you know, they are not in the situation that you describe. You say, no, the ahkam, the laws in Islam are always based on the most common case. Most common case. So here, for example, we take an example of a woman, for example, have her children, which of course she can bring her children to the masjid, but he has, you know, certain task that she would like to do. It might come the Jumu'ah conflicting with those tasks. But when it comes for the man, the society already been, let's say, structured the schedule based on the Jumu'ah in the Muslim society. But the woman cannot, you know, in a way control the schedule, because she's, you know, helping and serving and taking care of things that they don't have a particular schedule. So from this understanding and from this, you know, way of looking at the conditions of the women and the men in the society, and everyone's, subhanAllah, his natural disposition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them to fulfill their roles into this life and to the society. The non-obligation of the Jumu'ah for the woman is actually rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is rahmah. But it doesn't mean that it's not an obligatory, so it means like it's forbidden for them to go. This is where some people, they make mix and wrong interpretation, nothing have to do with the Sharia of Islam, with the Sharia of Islam. قال concerning the slave, قول الجمهور العلماء رحمة الله عليهم وخالف خرج به فالعبد لا تلزمه الجمعة في قول الجمهور. I mean, he's not an obligatory. The same thing, if we can, you know, let's say, do the same analysis as we did for the women, because his role or his task that he has to do is under the command of someone else. Therefore, to not burden him and to not have a conflict with his task is like, this is, we say, this is, you're not an obligation on you. So it's like to not burden him and not to see it like depriving him from the Jumu'ah. Is actually to not burden him. وخالف داود الظاهري فقال بوجوبها ولزومها على العبد. Some of the scholars, like Imam Dawood al-Zahiri, he said no, it's an obligation on the servant. And also Imam Ahmad, in one of his narration, is saying yes, it's also an obligation. وقال إن العبد يجب عليه أن يشهد الجمعة لأنها فرض عين. لأنها فرض عين. الجمعة, it is فرض عين, which is an individual obligation, which like there's the fardu kifaya, which is a collective obligation, and we have the individual obligation. The individual obligation, it means like everyone is obligatory to do it, not because other people they did it, then you will be given the permission to not do it, which is the collective obligation. Here, individual obligation, therefore his salat, nobody gonna replace him or taking his charge to do the salat for him, you know. So that's why some of the scholars, they say قال هي فرض عين فاستوى هو والحر. So there's here equality, I mean equality in the fact to be an obligation for him. There's a hadith, it's been mentioned on Tariq ibn Shihab, in which saying that the Jumu'ah is not an obligation on the servant. But this hadith, as the scholar Ahlul Ilm, they said it has kind of, some of the ilal, and tukullima fihi, in a way that it cannot be a strong evidence for this issue, for this mas'ala. وقد دل هذا الحديث على سقوط الجمعة عن العبد والمريض والمسافر والمرأة. In this hadith, there is stipulating or stating that the Jumu'ah is not an obligation on the servant, the sick person, the traveler, and the woman. فقالوا إن العبد لا تجب عليه الجمعة لأنه مشغول بخدمة سيده, because he has task and schedule that is not under his control. طيب. So we said the condition for someone, the obligation is to be ذكر, يرحمكم الله, ذكر, a man, a male, and حر, to be free, so which like he control his schedule in a way. But the schedule like not his, associated or under the control of someone else, like the servant. The third one, مكلف. التكليف would mean like, in the age of to be accountable. That's al-mukallaf. Every believer, if he fulfill two condition, he becomes mukallaf. Al-aqlu wal-bulughu. Al-aqlu wal-bulughu. To be sane and to have the age of puberty, that he reached the age of puberty. So a young boy or a young girl, so a young boy, of course, the girl, the young boy, he will not an obligation for him to attend the Jumu'ah. But if he attend the Jumu'ah, تصح منه, he will be rewarded. As the Prophet ﷺ, when the lady, she has a boy in her hand, and she lifted when the Prophet ﷺ was in the Hajj, قالت هذا له حج أعليه حج or له حج كما جاء في الرواية. This one, he shown her boy to the Prophet ﷺ. He will be rewarded for the Hajj. The Prophet ﷺ said, yes, and you will have reward for it too, for the mother that you brought him to Hajj. So the same thing for the Jumu'ah, the young children, they will be rewarded and it accepted from them, but it's not an obligation because they didn't reach the age of puberty. They didn't reach the age of puberty. قال وأما بالنسبة للصبي فإنها لا تنعقد به ولا تلزمه ولكن تصح منه إن فعلها. So for the young boy, it will not be, it's not an obligation for him, and also لا تنعقد به. I'm going to explain the meaning of الانعقاد. قال ولكن تصح منه, it will be accepted from him. The meaning of تنعقد, because there is a kind of number, minimum number for the Jumu'ah to be like the condition for the Jumu'ah to be performed, there's a number. So this number, we're going to see it in the condition, this number must be among the mukallafin. And those was an obligatory on them. So for example, for those who say, as in the book they say 40 need to be from the mukallafin. Is among the 40, is a young boy, he's not going to be, doesn't complete the nisab for the Jumu'ah. Okay, so that's mean al-in'iqadu. So if we have a minimum number for the Jumu'ah to be performed, then this number need to be from the mukallafin, and those present from non-people who, or from those who not obligatory on them, so cannot be counted in the number of the required to do the Jumu'ah, or to have the Jumu'ah becomes obligatory. The dalil, the evidence that is accepted from them is the Prophet ﷺ قال مروا أولادكم بالصلاة لسبع واضربوهم عليها لعشر. Order your children to pray at 7 and correct them at 10. And the bulugh, the age of puberty, is known. You know, the age of puberty, when someone he get to the, it has signs. It has signs. You know, having the hair in specific places. You know, for the girl, she starts her menstruation. For the boy, he starts, you know, the bulugh. But to have a very common age, the majority of the scholars, they say 15 years. 15 years. Some of the scholars, they say 18 years for the boys and 17 years for the girls. But the 15 years is what the majority of the scholars are saying. قال الصحيح أن سن البلوغ 15. سن البلوغ is 15 years. 18 years, it is the Maliki and the Hanafi school, and 17 in the girls. Yes? No, they are in the puberty, but to get the most common cases, so he will be entitled to pray. But in reality, someone will consider them like officially in the age of taklif, not the puberty, because the puberty, it's someone's, you know, body who decided. You know, if he has puberty at 13 years old, he will not deny it, right? But as accountability and as taklif toward the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is 15 years. قال مكلف and then مسلم. So تلزم كل ذكر حر مكلف مسلم. So one Muslim, someone who says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. The next condition. قال مستوطن ببناء اسمه واحد ولو تفرق. مستوطن ببناء اسمه واحد ولو تفرق. مستوطن is resident. بناء, البناء is the construction, and بناء is the building. But the bina here is the town. So the town, the boundaries of the town is the what is have as buildings around, and the end of any type of building or homes, that's where is the end of the town, right? For example, we say here the town, Minneapolis, right? That's the town. قال, if he's resident in this town, then also an obligation for him the Jumu'ah. Which when we say resident, so it means when someone is traveling, the Jumu'ah is not an obligation for him, the traveler. مستوطن ببناء اسمه واحد ولو تفرق. Sometimes in some places you find, like, you know, here a neighborhood, and then you have to go maybe like half a mile to find another neighborhood. So in this are places different. It's like if someone, which one of them we're gonna call the town, and the other one is like, you know, the outskirts of the town. Are these considered from the town or not? Because here, when we say the residency, is one of the condition of the Jumu'ah. So here he adds something. He said, if the town has the same name, so if the farther neighborhood is also under the name of the main town, so it's part of it. So that person or those people who live in that neighborhood also is an obligation for them the Jumu'ah. Like, for example, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the place of Quba is far from the masjid, the main center of the Masjid al-Nabawi, like 3-4 miles. But also we call it Medina, because, to travel at that time from the Prophet ﷺ mosque to Quba, there's a lot of, gardens and a lot of, properties where there's palm trees and everything. So there's no homes, there's no bina, So you have to work. So that's also, as it is under the same name of the city, therefore it's going to be like resident in that city. قال مستوطن ببناء اسمه واحد. That would mean اسمه واحد. So you have different conglomeration far from each other, but they have the same name, so it's going to be like all of them have the same ruling. ولو تفرق, even though they are, separate from each other. We don't have in the Sunnah that the Jumu'ah is an obligation on the one who's not resident. Because the Prophet ﷺ, when he traveled, he always, make his salat and never gather the people for the Jumu'ah. When he doesn't have the status of resident, he didn't make the Jumu'ah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قال لم يجمع صلوات الله السلام عليه. فدل هذا على أن الاستيطان شرط. So which is give us from the action of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that residency is a condition in the Jumu'ah. When someone is traveling, is not a condition for him. There's a hadith talking about that, but the most important, looking at the way of the Prophet ﷺ and how he did while he was traveling, as he didn't do the Jumu'ah. Therefore, based on that, we conclude that one of the conditions of the Jumu'ah is to be resident, or the residency is one of the conditions of the Jumu'ah. فقال لا تصح الجمعة لغير المستوطنين. People who are not resident, the Jumu'ah is not an obligation for them. Also people who's like travelers, or like Ahlul Badiyah, the people who live in the Badiyah, and the Badiyah is like the nomad people who travel from place to place, so they travel based on the need of the cattle that they have. They travel where there's water, and then in the other season they travel where there's al-kala, the pasture, etc. So it depends on the thing. These they don't have bina. So bina is like real structure where they live. So when he said the structure, which is a stability, residence, so if people they live under tents, so they will be like traveling from place to place in every season. Those people, the Jumu'ah is not an obligation on them. قال أهل البادية الذين يرحلون للمرعى. أهل البادية, those that travel, they change places, by season. So why is not an obligation for them? Because they not considered to be resident in one place. غير مستوطنين. And if they stay a whole season, for example, summer, by the end of the summer, they leave from that place. They go. And therefore, because they not, they even from season to season, the Jumu'ah is not an obligation.
What about those people who live in refugee camps? They might live there for years, but they never consider that place as their home.
No, those are different, because those are the condition around them who have them to be, kind of force them to be in that situation. But this is their, mode life, their life mode or lifestyle. They don't live in one place. So which is like their nature is, or like their natural lifestyle is to not be resident. Those, the Jumu'ah is not an obligation for them. But for those who the case you have, so because they don't know how long actually they're gonna stay this. The other people, they know that they're gonna, by the end of the summer they're gonna leave. So it's different. So those days Jumu'ah is an obligation. قال والاستيطان إنما يعتبر إذا كان ببناء وكانت فيه الجوامع كالمدن. So الاستيطان, this condition of being resident, it considered only when you have a structure. When we have structure, like you have homes, buildings, and like you see in the cities and in the villages, those are considered, that's where we talk about istitan. So this is according to the scholar rahmatullahi alayhi. The غير مستوطنين, the non-resident, and those who they take their homes, let's say tents and that and the type of that. So those, the Jumu'ah is not an obligation for them. The Jumu'ah is not an obligation for them. قال ولذلك لم يأمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من كانوا في البادية أن يجمعوا. So the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم didn't order the people who they lived out of Medina under the tent, like the Badia, they have their camels and everything. He didn't order them or command them to do the Jumu'ah. He didn't order them. And we said اسمه واحد ولو تفرق. So even they have different neighborhoods, separate from each other or far from each other, as long as they have the same name, it's going to be, have the same hukm. Then he said, ليس بينه وبين موضعها أكثر من فرسخ. There's between the town, or like if we have like different neighborhood, the mukallaf or someone who live far from the main town, قال ليس بينه وبين المسجد أكثر من فرسخ. So he has to be like not have the distance between him and the masjid should not be more than a farsakh. He's saying here, among the conditions to obligate a mukallaf to attend the Jumu'ah, that it will not be between him and the masjid more than farsakh. Farsakh is like 3 miles or around 4 to 6 kilometers. So this is the case of people, they live outside the town. Outside the town. We said those who live, their lifestyle is like to be like Ahlul Badiyah, under a tent and everything, and they traveling almost every season. Those is not an obligation for them. An obligation is for the people of the town, as you explained. Now, if someone live close to the town, we say how far the masjid, or like if there's any certain distance to obligate him to go to the Jummah. So here the scholar, he's saying, is like farsakh. If he's out of the town, farsakh, which is 3 miles, or like up to maybe 6 kilometers. How they define this distance? They define this distance based on the adhan. Because the call to prayer, when it's quiet time, and average climate, the adhan can be heard up to 4 miles. So he said, قال إذا نودي, when it's called, so you need to hear the adhan of al-Jumu'ah. So if someone is farther, he cannot hear it, then he will pray dhuhr. But if he want to join the Jama'ah and he go to the town and he pray, that also is accepted and he rewarded for him. But when we make it obligation on him, if he live out of the town at 3 miles or 4 or 3 miles, let's say farsakh, farther than 3 miles, the Jumu'ah is not an obligation on him. But for people who live inside the city, even he's far, like 20, 30 miles, is an obligation for him to attend the Jumu'ah because he's inside the city. You see the difference? So the difference, we're talking about someone who's living out of the city. So there's no bunyan, there's no buildings. He's like, you have to travel like 3 miles. There's no like only road. That person, he's like, if he's at 3 miles away, is an obligation. Farther than 3 miles is not an obligation. That's what he meant. قال ولا تجب. Look who you see. قال ليس بينه. Look. Just to read again the sentence. تلزم كل ذكر حر مكلف مسلم. Obligatory Jumu'ah on every male free mukallaf at the age of being accountable and trusted, assigned his mission to be fulfilled as his way of life. Muslimin, of course, he's a Muslim, he accepted the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mustawtinin, after that he need to be a resident in a bina, so in a town, and even though they are said separated but they have the same name. قال اسمه واحد ولو تفرق, but not. ليس بينه, but not. You see? وبين موضعها أكثر من فرسخ. So if we have like, he's far as a farsakh, he laysa, not. And he's not an obligatory on him. If he live farther than that town, more than 3 miles. Okay? The distance that we consider is not from the center of the town, let's say from the downtown. It's from the limit of the town. So he said farsakh, because if he lives at the border, from the border of the town. So I said, for example, if like far, like, half a mile from the border, said, I'm far from the center of the downtown, like, this is 11 miles. I said, no, it's based on the border. So with farsakh, it's like far, 3-4 miles. You have to get with the people to pray. The Jumu'ah is farther than that, then it's not an obligation. قال ولا تجب على مسافر ولا تجب على مسافر سفر قصر. Now, what he said, the condition of wujub, now he's telling us the opposite, right? So the mustawtin, someone he's resident, etc., but not on a musafir. قال مسافر ولا عبد, because we said is an obligation on a hur, so it's not an obligation on abd. ولا امرأة, and not a woman, because we said it's an obligation of the man. Then also is not here, you understand that is not an obligation. But here comes to confirm it. قال أي لا يلزم الإنسان إذا كان في السفر أن يصلي الجمعة. So it's not an obligation of someone traveling to pray the Jumu'ah. And the travel is سفر قصر, I mean a distance that allows someone to shorten the prayer. والدليل على ذلك أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يصلي الجمعة في السفر. And the evidence of that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم didn't pray Jumu'ah while he's traveling. and it wasn't reported at all that he, in any of his travels, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, make the Jamma. Based on that, the scholars, they have this unanimous opinion that the traveler is not an obligation on him to pray the Jummah. And one of the very strong evidence also that the Prophet ﷺ in Arafah, it was Jumu'ah. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was standing on Arafah, it was Friday, Jumu'ah. And he prayed Dhuhr and Asr. He didn't pray Jumu'ah. And even though the people of Mecca, they were with him. But if someone enter the town and there's the Jumu'ah, there's no blame or objection for him to join the Jumu'ah, of course. It's not an obligation for him. Like those who are non-obligatory, it doesn't mean that they should not attend it. No, if they attend it, it's accepted from them and rewarded. And the hadith that we mentioned, in which we said it has da'af, but also mentioning the woman and also mentioning the al-musafir. قال ولا على عبد, because and it's not an obligation on the abd, on the servant, and we mentioned that. ولا تجب على مسافر إلى آخره. ثم قال ومن حضرها منهم أجزأته ولم تنعقد به. ومن حضرها منهم أجزأته ولم تنعقد به. And whoever among them he attended, it will be his prayer valid, accepted, rewarded. ولم تنعقد به, but he will not be counted among the minimum number with which the Jumu'ah can be performed. Because there is a number, for example, the author saying 40. If you have 30 people, you need to pray Dhuhr, you don't pray Jumu'ah. But we'll see, inshaAllah ta'ala, after the break of the Salah, we continue, inshaAllah ta'ala. Meet you after the Salah here, inshaAllah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Any question? Just waiting for the rest of the group to come, inshallah. Yes. We defined it to be from 70 to 80 kilometers, around 45. We have the previous classes. No. So you can get them. You ask Brother Saeed or Brother Ibrahim. And we have a full analysis on why we have that distance. I think in the previous class or the class before it. So we have it recorded. So if you want to go back and just listen to them, and you'll find, because Al-Burad, he said 4 or 3, and based on a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and they were like an analysis how we get to the 45 miles or like 80 kilometers. So in 2 previous classes, inshallah, you can go back. Yeah. طيب. We also want to welcome our brothers who were in the Umrah, mashallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يتقبل منهم. And one of the programs that we had at the university is a program that we had like a dawra علمية in Jeddah, like an intensive learning courses in Jeddah. And this is, subhanallah, collaborating with the university, our university, alhamdulillah. And they went there and they had also the opportunity to perform Umrah, alhamdulillah. And this program we might have it yearly. We can, أخ سعيد، نحن برنامج جدة ممكن يكون سنويا صح؟ نعم سنويا. Yeah. So maybe anyone who intend to go. Actually, the intensive learning session is in Arabic. 2 weeks program plus Umrah package. MashaAllah. And the student, they only pay the ticket. Only ticket and the visa. The ticket and the visa. Alhamdulillah, we have our brother Muhammad and brother Ibrahim, I think. Ali. Yeah, they were from our group, mashallah. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin. Alhamdulillah. طيب. We'll continue بإذن الله. Do you have any other question? So as I mentioned, when you are in the emailing list, you will receive all the classes, the link of the recording of the classes. So inshallah, if you go back and you'll find all the analysis of that class, inshallah. طيب. قال here ومن حضرها منهم أجزأته ولم تنعقد به. And we said al-in'iqad, we understood what means al-in'iqad is related to the numbers. قال مسألة الانعقاد ترجع إلى اشتراط عدد المصلين للجمعة. عدد المصلين للجمعة فمذهب الجماهير أنه يشترط لها عدد معين. So according to the scholar, the majority of the scholar, that the Jumu'ah, one of his conditions is the numbers. We're going to study it, inshallah ta'ala. Some of the scholars, they say 40, the author here. Some of them, they say 12, other 4, other 2, and 3. طيب. So, if from those mentioned, that is not an obligatory on them, if they attend the Jumu'ah, they will not be among the number who are going to be fulfilling the required number for the Jumu'ah to be performed. So those will be the traveler, the abd, and the imra'ah. And then he continued, قال ومن حضرها منهم أجزأته ولم تنعقد به ولم يصح أن يؤم فيها. And it will not be allowed for this category to lead the prayer. For the one who's not obligatory, so if the woman, they are grouped together to make Jumu'ah, and she, as he's saying here, أي أن امرأة حضرت فلا تصلي ولا تجمع بغيرها ولو بنساء. They cannot have the Jumu'ah together. The same for the abd, the servant, but the servant, we said, if we take the opinion that is an obligation for him, so تنعقد به وتصح إمامته. For the musafir, لا تنعقد به, but the musafir, if he has more knowledge, or he's been granted, been asked to do, to lead them, there is no objection to do that. There is no objection to do that. Because non-obligation, it doesn't mean that he will not be able to lead. But عدم الانعقاد, that's a fact. طيب. Then he continued, قال ولم يصح أن يؤم فيها ومن سقطت عنه لعذر غير سفر وجبت عليه إذا حضرها وانعقدت به. Now, if someone he had the permission to not go to the Jumu'ah because of an excuse, but he make like he's put all his like strong will and have people to help him to go. So someone is sick, the one that is sick, Jumu'ah is not obligatory on him. But what if he go and attend the Jumu'ah? If I attend the Jumu'ah, it will be ajza'athu. I mean, he will be accepted from him. And also he will be counted among the people, the number required to perform the Jumu'ah. That's what he meant here. قال ومن حضرها منهم ومن حضرها منهم and no, the second one, ومن سقطت عنه لعذر. If the Jumu'ah is not an obligation, or like سقطت عنه, so because of a reason, excuse, valid excuse, the Jumu'ah is not required for him, for that particular excuse. But he will attend it, it will be valid for him, and he will be among the number considered وانعقدت به. We already mentioned in the chapter of Salatu Ahli al-A'dhar, and we said in the book, the chapter of Al-Jama'ah, the chapter of the congregation, in Zayd al-Mustaqni, he said, who the one who have the valid excuse to not attend the Jama'ah and the Jumu'ah? We said among them, the person who is someone who's marid, someone who's sick, someone, for example, who's if he going to go to the Jama'ah or to Jumu'ah, he going to be like concerned about his belonging, he doesn't have anyone to guard them, or he going to have his his belonging or his property will be taken away. So he's like concerned if he gonna leave them without being guarded, so he gonna lose them. That one is a valid excuse. قال in the chapter that we studied, قال وخائف من ضياع ماله أو فواته أو ضرر فيه أو موت قريبه, or someone he's, for example, taking care of one of his relative. Taking care of someone's relative, he's sick, is as he's like he has the same ruling as the one who's sick, because one is sick and the person who's taking care of him has said, I have to go to the Jumu'ah. Who's gonna help him? So being with a sick person also is a valid excuse. Or someone who's fall asleep, that's also. Or there is a lot of rain, or between him and a masjid, a rough road caused by a storm, for example, a lot of mud or things, then is a valid excuse to not attend the Jumu'ah. So those, we study them in the chapter of the congregation and what are the reason or the valid excuse to not attend congregation and the Jumu'ah. And here الشارح he add more that I just said. قال والعذر بالمرض يشمل المريض والممرض للمريض. The one who's taking care of the sick person also he had the same ruling. ويدل على ذلك ما جاء عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهم أنه لما سمع الصارخ على ابن عمه وهو خارج إلى الجمعة. He was leaving for the Jumu'ah and he heard someone calling help for his cousin. He left the Jumu'ah and he went and he was taking care, and actually his cousin was dying, and they wash him and they give him the kafan, etc., etc. And he missed the Jumu'ah. So those who have valid excuse to not attend the Jumu'ah, if they do, it's valid for them, and if they do, I said it's valid for them. وَتَنْعَقِدُ بِهِمْ. We can have, Mahmoud Abdul Hakim, we can have some tables close here so our sister, they can be in the front, inshallah. We can move some table from the back and put them here so the sister, they can be. طيب. Hi, we can, yeah. جزاكم الله خير. Maybe one table is enough. Then the author said, وَمَنْ صَلَّى الظُّهْرَ مِمَّنْ عَلَيْهِ حُضُورُ الْجُمُعَةِ وَمَنْ صَلَّى الظُّهْرَ مِمَّنْ عَلَيْهِ حُضُورُ الْجُمْعَةِ قَبْلَ صَلَاةِ الْإِمَامِ لَمْ تَصِحْ. We have another mas'ala here. The one who's entitled to go to the Jumu'ah and he didn't go, he has to pray the Dhuhr, right? Because, the Jumu'ah is replacing the Dhuhr on the day of Jumu'ah. So the one who missed the Jumu'ah, he has to pray the Jumu'ah. He has to pray Dhuhr. Here, in the condition someone, he doesn't have a valid excuse and he doesn't go to the Jumu'ah. It's actually sinful. But he has to pray the Dhuhr. The Dhuhr, he has to pray it after the Jumu'ah will have finished. If he prayed the Dhuhr before the Jumu'ah was attended or observed, his Salat Dhuhr is not accepted. قال ومن صلى الظهر ممن عليه حضور الجمعة. Whoever who prayed Dhuhr from among those observing the Jumu'ah is an obligation before the prayer of the Imam, the prayer here of the Jumu'ah, لم تصح. His Salat is not accepted. Why? Because Al-Aslu, he's commanded to attend the Jumu'ah. He's commanded to attend the Jumu'ah. And praying Dhuhr at that day is not required from him. So how he can pray Dhuhr when the command for this particular person is to pray the Jumu'ah? So if he prays Dhuhr, his Dhuhr is not valid. But when the Jumu'ah is completely observed and they finish the Jumu'ah, that's when his Dhuhr will be accepted. So the scholar, they said, هذا المكلف مكلف بالجمعة. This particular one, he's entitled to pray the Jumu'ah. So he's not supposed to pray Dhuhr till he miss literally the Jumu'ah. So they saying, the scholar, فَلَوْ صَلَّى قَبْلَ أَنْ يُصَلِّ الْإِمَامِ لَمْ تَصِحُّ مِنْهُ ظُهْرًا. If he prays before the Imam at the Jumu'ah prays, it will not be accepted from him. ومن هنا قالوا من لزمته الجمعة ولم يعذر بتركها لا تصح منه صلاة الظهر إلا بعد انتهاء الإمام من صلاة الجمعة. So the conclusion here, the statement concerning this mas'ala. Whoever the Jum'ah is an obligation on him and he doesn't have a valid excuse to miss it, but yet he didn't attend it, his dhuhr will not be accepted. Only if he prayed it after the Jum'ah was finished. Who have a valid excuse, he's not entered here. Who has a valid excuse, he can pray. He's a sick person and he has a valid excuse to not attend it. He will pray at any time of the dhuhr time. That's why قال وتصح ممن لا تجب عليه. And the dhuhr will be accepted for the one who is not an obligatory on him, like in the case of the author, the woman, and the servant, and the traveler. If they pray on time, they don't have to wait for the Jumu'ah or the Imam to finish his Jumu'ah. And here قال وتصح ممن لا تجب عليه. Those who's not required to pray the Jumu'ah are two categories. Those who, as we mentioned, by their status, they're not entitled, or they're not, they don't have the obligation to attend the Jumu'ah. And those who they're going through special circumstances, a sick person, or things like that. And then he said, وَالْأَفْضَلُ حَتَّى يُصَلِّيَ الْإِمَامِ. But it will be better if he will wait to pray dhuhr after the Imam finishes the Jumu'ah. Just the author added here for a reason. The reason is a sick person might, anyone who has a valid excuse or an excuse, it might that excuse, cease at the time when, before even the Jumu'ah. He was someone sick. At the time of the dhuhr, he still feel not good. But the prayer, for example, the call of the prayer, for example, the dhuhr is at 12, and the call of the prayer is going to be at 2 or 3. At 2, he feel like better, and he want to go. So I said, maybe in the case that his other will change, his situation will change, he will have the opportunity to attend the Jumu'ah. Therefore, I said, it's best to delay it after the dhuhr. But not for those who the status, in fact, is they, because of their status, the Jumu'ah is not an obligation. For example, a woman. If she already not planning to go to the Jumu'ah, she can pray her dhuhr at any time she wants. طيب. Then قال ولا يجوز لمن تلزمه السفر في يومها بعد الزوال. And it is not permissible for someone to travel, for someone whose Jumu'ah is an obligation on him, to travel after dhuhr, after the time of az-zawal, at that day. Why? Because he's traveling in a time when he's commanded to pray the Jumu'ah. So he should not plan to travel at that time. Because after Zawal al-Shams, at that particular time, the caller for Salatul Jumu'ah is going to call, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, "O you who believe, all you believe." When the call of the prayer to Jumu'ah is called, go hasten to the remembrance of Allah. So this one, he's taking like kind of, another route, which is avoiding the Jumu'ah by the travel. And we're telling him, how can you travel when you are commanded to pray at this time? Unless someone he's traveling, and in his way to travel, he's going to stop and pray Jumu'ah in his way. Or, in condition that the condition of the world of today, you might have, travel that you cannot even, schedule of planes and things that is out of your control. But here we're talking about the one who controls the time of travel. I mean, the schedule. He has a car. He can turn on, so don't do it on the Friday when at the time of Dhuhr you're traveling. No, you pray your Jumu'ah and travel. But if someone is the schedule of the traveling is out of his control, like, as planes, that's inshallah, he will not have objection. But someone also, he will not like target the Jumu'ah to travel in it. If it came to him as this is, especially international flight and everything, so some of the condition that they have to be on that time. Wallahu a'lam. Some of the shurut. Now, what are the condition of the Jumu'ah? What are the condition? So we talked about the condition concerning the mukallaf. Concerning the mukallaf. When we said condition concerning the mukallaf is on the every mukallaf when is an obligation on him and when is not an obligation on him, and what are the valid excuses, etc. Now, concerning the prayer itself, the Jumu'ah as a prayer, what are the conditions? What are the shurut? قال يشترط لصحتها شروط ليس منها إذن الإمام. To have the prayer of the Jumu'ah to be valid, there is a condition. But it's not the condition, the permission of the Imam. The Imam here is the Imam, the leader, let's say the governor, the chief of state, the Imam, the Khalifa, the Amir. So here قال يشترط لصحتها شروط ليس منها إذن الإمام. Not among the shurut is the permission of the Imam. So if it's not among the shurut, so why he said it? Said, I'm going to tell you the condition of the prayer, but not among them this. So if it's not among them, why are you mentioning them? So here, the wisdom that he mentioned it because there is a difference of opinion here, which make like there's other scholar that they request the permission of the governor or the Amir in the Jumu'ah. Okay. But when we say request or permission, not permission to pray, permission to have the Jamel. Okay, not the prayer, to have the Jamel. But according to the author, it's not a condition to have the condition. As long as you have the numbers, then you have the Jumu'ah. But we're going to understand also what is the wisdom of the scholar that's saying it required the permission of the governor or the Amir. الشرط في اللغة الشرط in the usul قال ما يلزم من عدمه العدم ولا يلزم من وجوده وجود ولا عدم. الشرط it's a condition. Without it, the action could not happen. But its presence will not imply the necessity to do the action. Example, like the time, shart. Like let's say the wudu for the salah. In absence of the wudu, there's no prayer. But if you have wudu, it's not necessary for you to pray. That's a shart. And we said not among it the permission of the Imam. Some of the scholars, they saying لا تقع الجمعة إلا بالإمام العام أو بإذنه. Is only the Jumu'ah can be led by the main leader or by his permission. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ did. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he gave them the permission to make the Jama'ah in Medina. And the time of the Prophet ﷺ only existed one Jumu'ah. One Jumu'ah. And based on that, some of the scholars, including the Hanafi school, they have put a condition in the permission of the leader. Because the permission here is like to come to have a congregation of the whole town together, if it's possible. That's the spirit of the unity. Therefore, it comes the permission here, not a permission to pray, but a permission to preserve. I mean, the wisdom behind the permission is to preserve the unity. Because some people, they can make a masjid, have a masjid, and they say, we don't want to go to the neighbors or like to the next neighborhood. And they prefer to not be over there, or prefer to not see these people. Or it becomes like, competing, a problem between them. So they want to dissociate themselves from the Jama'ah and make their own Jumu'ah. And have one Jama'ah is one of the very strong opinion that it only happened in time of Bani al-Abbas, that they start to have more than a Jumu'ah in one town. They have a river in Baghdad, Dajla. So people, they cross, the bridge to go pray the Jumu'ah in the big masjid. One incident happened that people, when they go to Jumu'ah, is like very crowded, and subhanallah, the bridge collapsed and people, they hurt and some of them died. So the Khalifa, he asked at the time, the student of Abi Hanifa at the time is Abu Yusuf al-Qadi. And they give the permission for a second Jumu'ah in the other side of the town. And that's the first two Jumu'ah existed in a town after the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because all the Khulafa, they had one Jumu'ah. But when you look at the evidence of the Sharia, you'll find it was done because of the circumstances, not as a ruling and hukum. That's why the scholar, they say, the opinion is قال أنه يجوز تعدد الجمعة. It is permissible to have many Jumu'ah in one town for convenience of people. But here comes the permission of the leaders or of the organizers of the institute who's taking care of that, like Lajnatul Ifta, or it depends on the sector in the government or who's taking care of such a thing, to not to avoid any chaos. Because some people, they make a Jumu'ah and they're calling for an innovation. Well, subhanallah, one of the things that done, sometimes knowing the difference of opinion will help to do islah. When Salahuddin al-Ayyubi came in Egypt, and it was dominance of the Batini school who dominating at that time, because the Fatimi, they invaded Egypt and they turned it to be like in the way of the following the ideology and the aqidah of the Batini, which is the Shia at that time. One of the way of the Islah, as in the Shafi'i school, is like the Jumu'ah only valid in Al-Masjid Al-Jamel, and the older masjid. Because if you have two masajid, the older masjid is the one that his Jumu'ah is valid in it. And if someone make a masjid to have people come, and that will be, according to scholar, masjid dirar. Because there is no need to have another masjid, to attend the Jumu'ah in it. We're not talking about masjid for salawat, about masjid to attend the Jumu'ah. To attend. So the masjid dirar, who someone like build to kind of, take away the unity or to call for an innovation. But if the origin masjid is the one who has a problem, so a necessity to have another masjid where to unite the ummah. So it depends on the circumstances. قال here أما لو كان الناس في بلد فيه أقلية مسلمة. So I'll continue what Salahuddin rahimahullah ta'ala did. Based on this opinion, he enforce this opinion for everyone to come to Masjid al-Jama. Because when you have a lot of masajid, you don't know what they're teaching. And at a point in this big masajid, respectable and rooted scholar of knowledge. And subhanAllah, by this, he made the aslah, and he brought back people to Ahlul Sunnah, to the path of the Sunnah. Because when you say, okay, all these masajid, small masajid, everyone need to pray in this masjid. So when you close those masajid in the Jumu'ah time, you have everyone to come to the big masjid. In the big masjid, you bring that scholar who going to be teaching and spreading the right message, so people, subhanAllah, they learn. And by learning, it converts them back to the path of the Sunnah. And this is one of the big actions that he did. Now, here قال أما لو كان, so you see the permission of the leaders or the permission of the authority, the right authority, it is also from a way of organization, not a permission to pray, but to organize and to avoid any problem or any things like that. أما لو كان الناس في بلد فيه أقلية مسلمة. But what if the Muslim, they live in a society where they are minority and they want to pray the Jumu'ah? So according to Ahlul Ilmi, there is no blame or objection on them, as long as they have the right number to make their Jumu'ah. And this is the saying of the Jumhur, or actually all the scholars from the Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, and Hanbali school. The first condition is al-waqtu. Al-waqtu is the time. أحدها الوقت, time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا. إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا. The salat being decreed on the believers on a timely manner. And the Salat al-Jumu'ah is also part of this. And the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed the Jumu'ah in a particular time. The time of the Jumu'ah has difference of opinion. The first opinion, which is the major opinion among all the rest of the opinion, is to pray Jumu'ah in the Dhuhr time. And there's a lot of hadith in the Sahih saying that the Jumu'ah is prayed, in the Dhuhr time, as being replacing the Jumu'ah, the Dhuhr. Therefore, the scholar, they said, it is, also, like you come to take the condition from the time of the Dhuhr, and apply it to the Jumu'ah, because the Jumu'ah is replacing Dhuhr on the Jumu'ah. حديث أنس في الصحيح قال كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلي الجمعة حين تزول الشمس. He used to pray the Jumu'ah after زوال الشمس. And زوال الشمس is the decline of the sun toward, or the inclination of the sun toward the west, to where it's going to set. And that's either time of the Dhuhr. وكذلك في حديث سلمة ابن الأكوع رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم صلى بالناس وخطب حين زالت الشمس. That the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم led the prayer and he gave his khutbah, two khutbah, حين زالت الشمس, after the zawal of the shams, which is the time of the dhuhr. قالوا ولأن الجمعة قائمة مقام الظهر ووقتها في وقت الظهر. And because of Jumu'ah replacing the Dhuhr, then its time should be the time of the Dhuhr. The second opinion, in one of the narration of Al-Imam Ahmad, and a group from the scholars and follower of the Hanbali school, and a group of Ahlul Hadith, that the time of the Jumu'ah starts like the time of Salatul Eid, after Shuruq, after the Shuruq. وذلك بعد ارتفاع الشمس قيد رمح. And thus after the sun will rise in the horizon the distance or an elevation comparable to an elevation of a rumh, the spear, which is around 12 to 15 minutes. That's why he said, وَأَوَّلُهُ أَوَّلُ وَقْتِ صَلَاةِ الْعِيدِ. The beginning of the prayer of the Jumu'ah is the beginning of the prayer of Salatul Eid, which is after the sunrise. وَآخِرُهُ آخِرُ وَقْتَ صَلَاةِ الظُّهْرِ. And the end of the time is the end of the time of the Dhuhr, just before Asr, when the shadow is equal to the size of the object. And in this narration that the Salat of Al-Jumu'ah is before Dhuhr, the time of the Dhuhr, saying that because Salatul Jumu'ah is congregation of the whole people of the town, so the congregation, to bring them together, so the time will be what is the time the most convenient for their congregation, more because the Jumu'ah is a celebration, not like Salatul Dhuhr. And there's a hadith, but a hadith that been, some of them they've been, فيها تكل ما فيها. But there's a hadith that one of the companions said, we used to pray Jumu'ah and get back, to our homes, and still, the sun in the في كبد السماء, the sun in the middle of the sky, which is mean they finish the prayer before Salat al-Dhuhr, which has come to a conclusion, is preferable. Is recommended to do it in the Dhuhr time. But if it's needed and is convenient for the people to gather them before Dhuhr, it is also permissible, because we have the opinion of that. And that's actually what is being done, and it's done here around around all the states here. So there's the first Jumu'ah is done before the adhan al-dhuhr. So many people, they ask, is this permissible? We say yes, it's permissible because we have it in the fiqh, and scholars, early scholars like Imam Ahmad and everything, validating by the hadith that is permissible. That is permissible. And more to be regarded as Eid prayer, because it's the Eid of the week, than to be salat like Salat al-Dhuhr, which is common timely manner based on on every day. Yeah. Yes.
So if you take the second opinion, then they pray earlier. Do they still pray Dhuhr then, or they don't do that day?
They don't pray Dhuhr. Some of the scholars, when they make a second Jumu'ah, not the main Jumu'ah of the Imam, another Jumu'ah in the town. Like when it happened in the fatwa of Abu Yusuf al-Qadi, some of the people, some of the scholars like around say is for safety, pray the Dhuhr after Jumu'ah. Which is some of the opinion till now, they pray Jumu'ah and they pray Dhuhr. But this doesn't have any evidence to validate that. But whoever who pray Dhuhr, he doesn't, Jumu'ah at any time is a Jumu'ah. So he has his obligation. Whoever pray Jumu'ah, then the Dhuhr doesn't exist for him. The one who missed Jumu'ah, that's the one who has to pray Dhuhr. Yeah. Any other question? طيب. وآخره آخر وقت صلاة الظهر. That's the end of the time. أي آخر الجمعة آخر وقت صلاة الظهر، وذلك حين يصير ظل كل شيء مثله. يصير ظل كل شيء مثله. When the shadow of the object equal to the size of the object. That's the end of Salat al-Dhuhr and the beginning of Salat al-Asr. With the difference of opinion according to the Hanafi school, but the Jumhur, this is the time. طيب. Now, what if the Imam, when he's doing his khutbah, he make a long khutbah, and then the time of Dhuhr ending, because we know the beginning, we have a difference of opinion on the beginning, and we said, okay, there's an opinion starts after Shuruq. But the end of the Salat, it's unanimous. You cannot pray Jumu'ah at the time of the Asr. So the Asr, that's another prayer. So the Jumu'ah need to be observed before the time of the Asr. But even Imam, mashallah, he's given his khutbah and he missed Salat al-Dhuhr. He missed the time. If he's going to lead them, he has to finish 4 rakah. What is the last time? The end of the time that he's still praying 2 rakah, Jumu'ah. قال لو أنه خطب وطول في خطبته وأحرم بالصلاة بعد أن صار ذل كل شيء مثله، أو خطب وابتدأ الصلاة قبل أن يصير ذل كل شيء مثله، وفي أثناء الصلاة صار ذل كل شيء مثله، فخرج عليه الوقت أثناء الصلاة. So while he's praying, he missed the time. So here, which we're going to be considered? In the beginning of the khutbah or the beginning of the salah? In fact, it's the beginning of the salah. But when the salah, are we going to consider the takbirat al-ihram or something else? Because here, look what he said. الوقت وقت صلاة وآخره آخر وقت صلاة الظهر، فإن خرج وقتها قبل التحريمة صلوا ظهرا وإلا الجمعة. So if the time of the Jumu'ah ends before he say Allahu Akbar, he will pray Dhuhr. So according to the author, the end of the time is to say Allahu Akbar, the beginning, Takbirat al-Ihram in al-Jumu'ah. But in reality, when you look at the Sunnah, al-ibratu, the reference here is not Takbirat al-Ihram. It's the first rak'ah. And when the first rak'ah ends, is at the end of the ruku'. Because when you join the Imam, and you join the Imam in the ruku', you get to the salah, right? After the ruku', you miss the rak'ah. So referring to the sunnah, the end of the time is the ruku' of the first rak'ah. So here, hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. من أدرك ركعة قبل أن تطلع الشمس فقد أدرك الصبح. Whoever who prayed one rak'ah before the sunrise, he had prayed Fajr on time. ومن أدرك ركعة قبل أن تغرب الشمس فقد أدرك العصر. فقد أدرك العصر. And whoever prayed one rak'ah before the sunset, he has prayed the Asr on time. And the rak'ah we know is at the end of the ruku'. So if he stands from the ruku' saying Sami Allahu liman hamidah, and the time didn't enter, at that time it entered, he's safe. So let's say here the author saying قال قبل التحريمة. So his reference, his line is the Takbirat al-Ihram. We say the stronger opinion is to have one rak'ah. So you delay it with one rak'ah, which is the recitation of Fatiha Surah and the 4 ruku'. That's the difference. Any question? And then we move to the next class, inshallah. So next time we'll start with the second condition, which is the number. Take a few minutes, and if you don't have a question, a few minutes, and we start maqasid al-shara'. Yes, go ahead.
Just a question about some people say, not here much, but other places when they say Jumu'ah Mubarak, and then there's people who say that saying that is bid'ah. What is your opinion?
Wallahi, some of the scholars, they don't see an objection in it, because it's not initiating any type of worship, and it doesn't have, result on it, any type of belief that there is blessing in it. So if someone says Jum'ah Mubarakah, he said, Alhamdulillah, you told me this is going to get me more reward. Or saying it have more reward. No. But Jum'ah Mubarakah, some of the scholars, when they mentioned, they said there is no blame in it. it might be actually good in a way that you remind someone that it's Jumu'ah. And it is like, yes, it's a nice day, you know, where someone he need to take his shower, he gonna put the best of his clothes as we want to see it. So it's a really special day. It's a day of dhikr for the believers, you know. But to make it as a standard, if someone doesn't tell you Jum'ah Mubarak, I said La hawla la, you see his lack etiquette and things, that's when we're gonna get to the problem. But if someone spontaneously said, inshallah, there is no objection in it. It actually is good in some case. But to make it as a condition and standard and say, you know, when someone write thing, and after the shower and you take and ghusl, you know, you have to call all your contacts, say Jum'ah Mubarakah to everyone, that becomes a bid'ah. Yes, yes.
You know how you said, like, if you pray Asr and the first rak'ah is right before Maghrib starts?
Yeah.
So in Ramadan, before Fajr, the adhan starts. Say you're eating a sandwich, but the adhan starts. My mom said you can finish the sandwich.
No, your mom, yeah. But that's not, the saying of your mom is not the source of Sharia. So someone should not finish the sandwich. He has to stop at the adhan. Because that's hadith of the Prophet, is a reference. And when we said, if he catch a rak'ah before the sun rise, so he already initiated the prayer. So by initiating the prayer, even though he's going to finish it in the after the time has finished, is going to be considered that's the mercy from Allah to have him that. And that's the prayer is one unit, right? If you start it and it's going to prolong till you finish it. But the eating, you can stop it at any time. If you consider one sandwich is one unit, so that's we can find the fatwa in it. But I think in eating we base on bites, right? You say one bite. If you have something, someone will swallow it. If he still have it, he has to get it out and rinse his mouth. Inshallah. And there's people actually, they say, even the adhan, he said no, because in the Quran say till you make the distinction between the black thread and the white thread, which is when you start to see white in the horizon, so like there's kind of light. So people, they're still eating, and looking at the window. That's also is wrong, because they already, they violated that day.
So last week we were in the Haramain. For example, we were in Medina and we were there in the Masjid Nabawi. And there are always space in the mosque. Sometimes not inside but outside.
Yes, yeah.
But still, I saw people praying Jama'ah out of masjid very close to the Masjid Nabawi. I was asking myself why they don't join us. Like for example, if you look at Masjid Bilal, it's not so far from the Masjid Nabawi, but still they're doing Jama'ah there, whether they are able to come and still can take space to do the Masjid Nabawi. I was asking myself why this is happening.
The masjid, when it built, it was far from the Masjid al-Nabawi. Now with the expansion, they look close. So that masjid, it has the iqamah of a salah since it was built. So you will not stop it. So people who attend the masjid, they will attend it. Because sometimes, to walk to the Masjid al-Nabawi, they miss the prayer. And the one who going to joining the masjid, the salat in the Masjid al-Nabawi, he need to see the lines. He will be in the line 3, 2 at least, and then seeing the other lines. And it will be in in the let's say in the boundaries of the masjid. In the boundaries of the masjid. So when you walk in the other side and there's masjid, so you becomes like in the jama'ah of that masjid. But subhanallah, they don't have the same reward, of course. In the masjid they never use 1,000. فَذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. But at that time, I mean the time of the Prophet ﷺ, or the time after when afterwards, I mean even after generation, maybe 200, 300 years, having that masjid, it was far from the Masjid al-Nabawi. The Masjid al-Nabawi, it was only around what they have like the dome. That's it. That's the masjid. And actually it was, if you see the Rawdah at the Minbar, that was the end of the masjid. Then Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he had like the size of two, those pillars on the side. And then the time of the Uthmani, they add the rest, where there's, the entrance of the Khukhat Abi Bakr. In the front, where there's that open, that's the end of the masjid. So all what they add on the side and to the end, that's all new. Actually, Al-Baqiyah, it was far from the masjid. It was far from the masjid.
So, Masjid Bilal was there when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was still alive?
No, I don't know, no. But even if it's built, because if you look at some pictures, they have a museum over there. When you look at some picture, you find it like, all those surrounding, they're far from the masjid, considered to be far. And they have, mashallah, kind of a museum where they have kind of mujassam, how they rebuilt the whole Medina and the whole Mecca. You'll be so amazed, subhanallah. Maybe the whole city was inside what the masjid is today. The whole city. All the houses of the companions, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, and everything is all maybe around what today's masjid. Subhanallah. Tafadhal.
Usually, with the both Haramain and the Imam, the Masjid of the Prophet, when the Imam say Allahu Akbar, we hear these other persons who saying behind him Allahu Akbar.
Yes.
But we have, I think, the loudspeakers, and everybody hears the Imam. Is that still something we need, or is that kind of considered bid'ah?
No, they kept it like istihsan. I mean, it's been done before to have people, they listen, to hear. And they kept it, as is being done, like for example, which is sunnah, to uncover, for example, or to hasten in the 3 first tawaf. The Prophet ﷺ did it for a reason, right? He said to show to the people of Quraysh the strength of the believer. Today we don't have to show off anything, but we still do it. That's a sunnah. But based on this, understanding of the spirit of this sunnah, what was done before, even though things changes, they kept it for the tradition. And sometimes the imam, you barely hear it say Allahu Akbar. So those are, to be sure that everyone will listen the takbirat al-intiqal. So it's not, inshallah. Any other question? Take a few minutes and we start the next class, inshallah.